Thank you everyone for being here. I am so glad that even though we're remote and in different places, that we still are interested, we're still tuning in to the Illinois Climate Action Plan Celebration and Forum. So thanks again for being here. My name is Meredith Moore, and I am the Sustainability Programs Coordinator at iSEE, coming at you in front of a lovely compost pile. I'm enjoying seeing some of the other Zoom backgrounds, so thanks for participating in that. A few logistics before we get started. Please just make sure that your microphones are muted. Also, it will help if you select speaker view at the top of your screen. We also ask that you refrain from asking any questions. Instead, there's going to be a survey at the end of this for you to provide your feedback. So make sure to keep that in mind if you, as you're going through this event, that we are going to want to know what you think of these objectives, both positive and negative. So please fill out that feedback form afterward. As a reminder, these are draft objectives. So this is really our first opportunity, first public-facing opportunity to present these to you. So we still have opportunities for stakeholder input and feedback before we have the final plan. And then lastly, a recording will be made available on the iSEE website after this event. So if you need reference to any of the objectives or anything from this presentation, that will be available for you. A quick overview of what we will be going over for the next hour. We'll start with iSEE Director Evan DeLucia to get us started, followed by a background of the iCAP process and the timeline. Then the students from the various sustainability working advisory teams will present the iCAP 2020 objectives, followed by the feedback survey. Thank you again for being here. Let's get started with Evan.
Well, hello everyone. As Meredith said, I'm Evan DeLucia. I'm the Baum Family Director at our Institute for Sustainability, Energy and Environment, or iSEE. iSEE is a hub for sustainable thought and action on our campus. I want to thank you first for attending today. I really wish we could be meeting in person, but we're charging forward with our efforts and hope you feel, my deep appreciation and our collective appreciation for the hard work you've been doing from afar. So iSEE has three interconnected missions: interdisciplinary research, education outreach, and campus sustainability. And of course, today we're focusing on the campus sustainability aspect as we look at the future of iCAP, the future with iCAP 2020, which is our newly updated roadmap for carbon neutrality and a more sustainable campus. This is an extraordinary time. Campus is quiet, social distancing, concerns about global pandemic. It puts a lot of campus affairs into perspective. But I'm really glad that we can bring all of you together from the university community together, virtually anyway, and turn our attention for the next hour or so to the future of campus sustainability. I could talk for a long time about the accomplishments the campus has made in the sustainability space, national and international recognitions for our campus. This year alone, STARS Gold, Tree Campus and Bee Campus USA designations, Bicycle Friendly University, a winner of the International Laboratory Freezer Challenge, and many more. But today, this is about the Illinois Climate Action Plan. The extraordinary work of facilities and services and the hundreds of students, faculty, and staff members who have helped us draft iCAP 2020. We've heard your voice in the past year and hope that you continue to work with us to make campus more sustainable. This is the second time iSEE has been involved in drafting the iCAP. Our campus signed a carbon commitment in 2008, followed that up with the 2010 iCAP. A few years later, our institute, iSEE, opened up, and we worked with the various sustainability working advisory teams, or SWAT teams, to draft the iCAP 2015. That document really reaffirms our commitment to carbon neutrality, certainly no later than 2050. It is mostly through the hard work of F&S and other partners, the Illini Union, Housing and Dining, the Parking Department, and many others, that we've been able to reach and surpass the intermediate goals set forth in the previous iCAP. That work has helped us to conserve resources and money and to reduce emissions on this campus. We all together have moved toward our objectives with effort behind the scenes we have over 250 buildings on this campus, to make those buildings much more efficient. And we're really, really grateful for the collective effort that we've made to increase efficiency on campus. But we are at a point where all of us must pitch in to achieve the ultimate goal of a carbon neutral campus. We've kind of picked the low-hanging fruit, so we've got some very heavy work, some very heavy lifting to do ahead. And I have to say that during the drafting of the iCAP 2020, it has been very clear and inspiring that our students, faculty, and staff have a real passion for making this campus more sustainable. In 2014, iSEE created a process to involve students, faculty, and staff in climate action. It was the first time we were able to bring all of these communities together. And each SWAT team has active representation from all three segments of our campus community. The ideas they put forth have helped guide us to this point. And in particular, this past year, we've had hundreds of students offer input into the iCAP 2020 between monthly student input sessions, an 8-week course that was taught earlier this year, and RSO involvement. I'm really impressed with the passion and really excited about the passion of our student body for sustainability efforts. After all that early input and some outstanding writing by our SWAT teams, today kicks off the beginning of the iCAP 2020 Roadshow, a chance for people to look at the first draft of this very important document and offer even more feedback. In future weeks, we'll be reaching out to the Campus Senate and other groups as we seek more guidance in the drafting process. Sometime this fall, when hopefully we're all back on campus, we will have a signing ceremony with Chancellor Jones and celebrate our achievements and a reaffirmation of our commitment via iCAP 2020. I really can't wait for that day. But for now, I want to turn it over to our Sustainability Programs Coordinator, Meredith Moore, and the SWAT team members to give you a first look at iCAP 2020. Thank you all for your deep involvement in this process.
Thank you, Evan. To give you all a brief overview of what the Illinois Climate Action Plan actually is, it is our strategic plan for meeting our climate commitment to carbon neutrality as soon as possible, but by 2050 at the latest. Back in 2008, Chancellor Herman signed the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, which pledged that we would achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, if not sooner. Then in 2016, Interim Chancellor Barbara Wilson signed Second Nature's Climate Resilience Commitment, which pledged us then to work with our surrounding communities to increase our level of preparedness and work together amidst a changing climate. The Illinois Climate Action Plan itself incorporates specific goals and objectives for the next 5 years and beyond. These are we try to go over specific sections within that, including zero waste, transportation, energy, land and water, education and outreach, and resilience. And all of our progress on achieving our iCAP goals and objectives can be tracked online at any time on the iCAP portal. So actually at the end of this event, there will be a link of additional resources that I invite all of you to check out that online database to see how we're doing. There's many projects, over 800 projects and 3,700, more than that, project updates that you can follow. So as Evan said, we have had a busy year with getting to where we are. So starting last October of 2019, we kicked off this year with Campus Sustainability Celebration, which is an annual event where we invite members of the campus community as well as the public to join us in celebrating our sustainability efforts. So it was at this time that we also asked our SWAT teams, our Sustainability Working Advisory teams, to submit their first round of draft objectives. this year we have had more than ever students really get involved and have their voice be heard. So we are so appreciative and so thankful for everybody, but especially for the students who have really shown an interest in creating this plan that we are all so proud of. So since November, we have had these monthly student input sessions where approximately 40 or so students have come together to help develop objectives, help revise some specific projects and recommendations on what should be included in the plan and what our campus should really prioritize for the next 5 years. This spring, we have focused on contacting our stakeholders, and we will continue to do so in the coming months as well. We, for the first time, had an NRES 285 course, which was an 8-week course designed specifically for the iCAP and developing objectives. So hopefully we have some students here today from that class. Whoops. Then in May, so in just a few weeks, we will publish our first full document of the iCAP, where we will continue to seek stakeholder feedback. So stay tuned for more information on that. We would love to continue to hear your thoughts and hear what you would like to see in the plan, especially what you have liked and what you suggest to improve as we're still in these editing stages. Throughout the summer, we will continue to meet and revise the plan before eventually arriving at a consensus on the objectives to obtain chancellor approval this coming fall at the next campus sustainability celebration. So hopefully we see you all there. Hopefully we're back on campus and can come together and celebrate this great plan. With that, I invite Julia to speak a bit about the transportation objectives. So Julia, I'll let you take it away from here.
Okay, thanks Meredith. Hi everybody, thanks for joining the live stream. So my name is Julia Socotita and I am from the Transportation and Zero Waste team. So I'll be guiding you through the objectives for both of those teams. So before I get into the actual objectives, just for a bit of background on where these are coming from, what the teams are thinking about when we make these objectives. We are considering like the 3 legs of carbon emissions for transportation. So that comes from 3 areas. It comes from campus-owned vehicles, which is referenced very often as the campus fleet. And so they can be departmental vehicles. Those are all of the facilities and services vehicles. It includes different auxiliary unit vehicles as well. So that's one of the legs. The second leg is commuting. So that includes staff and faculty who are commuting into and out of the university. That would mean their daily commute. And then the third leg is air travel. So those are the 3 kind of pillars that we're considering when we made these objectives. So the first objective, as you can see, is improving university-owned fleet vehicle fuel efficiency through the establishment of written replacement plans for at least 80% of the campus fleets by fiscal year 24. So again, that references that campus fleet. So these are university-owned vehicles, and this idea revolves around the fact that we would like to see less vehicles in the fleet overall, but of the vehicles that we do have in the fleet, we want them to be as low emission as possible. Ideally, that would mean that all the vehicles are electric or biogas or something, but it's not realistic in some scenarios, especially considering the fact that a lot of departments, they only have 1 or 2 vehicles and they don't use them very often. So it just wouldn't make sense from both an environmental and an economic standpoint to replace vehicles that haven't really met their end of life. So we're considering that fact when we made this objective, and we want to see the average age of the university-owned vehicles decrease, and so that's the point of these replacement plans. The second objective concerns pavement condition index, or PCI index, for university-owned roads. And so just so you have a bit of reference for the scale, 55 is considered, so the scale runs from 0 to 100. 55 to 70 is considered fair. 70 to 85 is considered satisfactory, and then 85 and above is good. So the last time that we assessed our PCI, that was in 2016, and it was at 65. And so since 2016, we've done a lot of construction renovations. So we would just like to see where we're at. So what is really great about this objective is that it allows a basis for us to do those analyses more often and see where we're at. For the third objective, that one is to establish an electric vehicle task force to identify key goals for supporting the use of electric vehicles on and off campus by fiscal year 22. So in 2018, Vice Chancellor Cangelares, he signed in support an electric vehicle task force, and that task force was charged with finding some they were charged with finding ways to instill electric vehicles on campus. And so what they found was that they wanted more investment into levels 1 and levels 2 electric vehicle charging. And also what the task force suggested in 2018 was a follow-up study within the next 2 years, so 2020, to see how the university did since that task force convened. So that's really the point of this objective as well, and seeing what other opportunities we have to invest in electric vehicle structure. So for objective 4, that's reducing the percentage of staff trips made using single occupancy vehicles from 60% to 50% by fiscal year 25, and then 45% by fiscal year 30. So this is again targeting that commuting aspect of those 3 pillars that I was talking about. And it's a huge component of campus emissions, but it is a little more tricky than some of the other objectives just because it's harder to track. The only way that is realistic to track is through parking permits that are handed out. So we're hoping to implement ideas that will reduce those single occupancy vehicles and to encourage carpools and van pool opportunities. So actually on our SWAT team, Yanfeng Ouyang, he's a professor of civil and environmental engineering, and he's been on the team for quite a while, and so he knows a lot about what we've been doing here, and he's hoping to establish within the next few years a self-sustained faculty and staff commuter system. So this is a really exciting opportunity for staff and faculty to make great decisions about how they are choosing to commute. And then next slide, please. So the next objective is to develop a commuter program known as Bus, Bike, and Hike for faculty and staff. And like I was saying before, it's really difficult to track how faculty and staff are commuting outside of parking permits. So what this commuter program proposes for faculty and staff is give up your parking permit and you will get certain perks. So if you choose to take the bus, choose to bike, or choose to walk, if whatever's feasible for you, then you will get certain perks. This can include a limited set of daily parking passes to use just in case. It includes having a really great emergency ride home program and stuff like that. So the hope is to have 100 people registered by fiscal year 24 and 500 people by fiscal year 30. So that would be a really great opportunity as well to decrease single occupancy vehicles. The next one is to continue to implement the 2014 Campus Bike Plan. And it's a set of criteria given by the accreditors of Bike Friendly University to ensure that biking is safe, that it's accessible, and that it's convenient to all of our campus and community members. So what this includes is some things are bike infrastructure support. So that means accessible bike racks as well as potential winter storage for bicycles, maintenance of bike paths, and supporting education initiatives. So like the NIGHT or the Campus Bike Center, they're always providing opportunities for people to figure out how to bike on campus, which is really cool. And the 7th objective is to develop a smartphone app for location parking in all 5 campus parking decks by fiscal year 24. So yeah, so basically what this would do is this supports decreasing traffic in the inner campus loop. So hopefully those who park in the decks will be incentivized to walk or you use public transit rather than driving to the final destination. So you would go to the park, you would park at your parking deck, and then you would find your way around wherever you need to using the app, which would lower overall emissions. And then the last one targets air travel. So the hope is to reduce net air travel emissions from the fiscal year 2014 baseline, 50% by 2024 and 100% by 2030. So air travel has been a really hot topic for our team, and it has been interesting to figure out how to reconcile the fact that we are we're an R1 university, so our research is an integral part of who we are, and it just is really important to keep that in mind when we're making goals and initiatives. So the main way that we've been trying to do this is through offering carbon offset programs and supporting effective and efficient telecommuting, as well as supporting other programs that may not necessarily be air travel, but they could be carpools or trains or something like that. So that would be like the Metro or UI Ride was implemented in the past semester. And then, yeah, hopefully air travel emissions can decrease through programs like that. So that's all for me.
Thank you, Julia. And now we will hear from Mallory.
Hey everybody, my name is Mallory. I'm the clerk for the education SWAT team. And so I'm just gonna take you through our draft objective. So the education SWAT team is actually a new team for as of this school year, so fall 2019. So we're really starting from the ground up, but we really want to focus on, the curricular opportunities that the university can provide to all of its students, so that we can truly integrate sustainability into every single student's educational experience, and then they can continue to be kind of environmental stewards and just really informed and empowered members of society with sustainability after graduating. So our first objective is working with the Committee for General Education Requirements to identify ways to provide information for students about how to incorporate sustainability in their fields of study and future careers. So that's kind of going off of what I just said about kind of some of the main goals of this SWAT team and of all of our objectives. So one idea with this is to have a sustainability gen ed, and then there are a lot of classes that already exist that could definitely satisfy that gen ed requirement, and then this would also promote more classes to be developed to meet that requirement as well. So then we have number 2, identify and implement a method for introducing all incoming students to sustainability, including campus sustainability programs and iCAP programs and practices. Make this educational program a requirement for all incoming students by fiscal year 22, and report the number of students who have participated each semester. So this one is a little bit more broad. We have found as a SWAT team that one of the main ways that we could implement, one main method for implementing, for introducing all incoming students to sustainability would be including a sustainability unit in all of the college level freshman orientation courses. So we are working on implementing that into hopefully Engineering 100 in the coming years, and then we can kind of use that as a pilot program to scale that up into all of the college 100 level freshman orientation courses. Other opportunities for introducing all incoming students to sustainability include workshops and just increasing students' awareness in different avenues that they can get involved in sustainability. Then we can move on to number 3, the next slide. Thank you. So 3 is establish a comprehensive online repository for courses and academic programs with sustainability affiliations. So there really needs to be kind of one central hub that students can go to to see all of the different opportunities for sustainability. Clearly, you know, having institutions such as iSEE, the University of Illinois, does really support sustainability educational opportunities. There are a lot of them, but there kind of seems to be some communication issues with students of just finding access to what those resources are. So establishing a comprehensive online repository for courses will really be helpful for any student to just have one go-to place to see what their opportunities are. And then we offer an environmental leadership program for undergraduate students, including workshops, visiting speakers, experimental learning, field learning in Washington, D.C., and pre-professional development opportunities. So these would be students who are very interested and passionate about sustainability, and give them more opportunities to just enhance their education with these workshops and speakers. And then also a trip to Washington, D.C. to kind of see what all of this looks like in more of a real world setting. And that will be really helpful to students who are really taking a sustainability focused career after their undergraduate experience. And we can go to the next slide for number 5. So 5 is develop a sustainability internship program through partnering with businesses, nonprofits, local government, and cultural institutions in Central Illinois. The total number of internships awarded will be reported each year. So this is for students who kind of want to tailor their own internship experience, you know, whether that is they want to work with like larger corporations, smaller businesses, nonprofits, if they want to go into government and policy, and then also the cultural aspects of sustainability as well, with like environmental justice. So this will just increase the number of sustainability related internships for students and just give them access to all of these opportunities. And, you know, internships are so important. Graduating and going into the workforce now, you kind of almost need one to guarantee a really good job. So students who are interested in the various ways that sustainability can connect to their career can have access to one of these internships and then be really prepared for after they graduate. Then number 6 is incorporate eco-friendly tagging for at least 3 career fairs per year starting in fiscal year 21. So this is one that I'm really excited about because I think it'll make the navigating career fairs a lot easier for students like myself that are interested in sustainability, because we all know that there's such a variety of ways that sustainability can be related to every career and almost every discipline and department across the university. So being able to have an eco-friendly tag to designate companies that are related to sustainability or have some sort of sustainability opportunities for students will really help guide them to those companies so that they can, you know, more tailor their career search, internship, and internship search. And I'm really excited that that is starting soon in 2021. And then 7, we have offer a new graduate certificate in sustainability by fiscal year 24. So this is something that will be really helpful for graduate students and that is still, you know, in development, looking at right now. So definitely by 2024, that will be available. And so then we just have a quote from one of our student members, Alexis Smith. She's from sophomore, and she says that her favorite part about being on the education SWAT team is her ability to craft and enhance her own education. Many of the programs and events that we drafted are things that she intends to participate in and become involved with herself. And yeah, I think that really speaks to the importance of having student involvement, whether it be from the student input iCAP sessions or just students on the various SWAT teams, because it does definitely offer that opportunity to fill in those gaps of things that students wish already existed, and then they can go and participate in. That is everything for the education SWAT team.
Thank you so much, Mallory. Great job. We are now going to hear from David regarding the energy objectives.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, hi everyone. My name is David Rivera-Core. I'm a senior and I'm on the energy SWAT team. So the first draft objective here is to create an energy master plan. As we all know, one major goal of the iCAP is to be carbon neutral by 2050. The problem is we don't really have a plan to get there. And so this energy master plan will serve as a detailed strategy to become carbon neutral from an energy emissions standpoint. And so this plan will include potential sustainable energy technologies and life cycle cost analyses of these options. It'll include milestones to make sure that we're making incremental progress toward carbon neutrality by 2050. It'll also include realistic goals for energy conservation or fossil fuel use reduction for the implementation of clean energy technologies. And also it will include plans for funding all these efforts. And this master plan will also, well, if it happens, it can also be used to set goals for the next iCAP and for future iCAPs. So the next objective is to improve space management. As the size of campus grows, so does energy consumption. And in 2010, the university enacted a net zero space growth policy, which basically said, all right, we're gonna not build new buildings. We're not gonna increase the gross square footage of campus. And they have not followed through with that, nor are they likely to follow through with that in the future. And so what this objective really wants to do is create a new policy that sets realistic goals for limiting campus growth and for making space usage more efficient. We should also set up a sustainable space stewardship program that holds the university accountable for meeting these goals. One thing my SWAT team is especially excited about is having the university establish a building envelope requirement. And what this means is that in order to make a new building, that building must meet certain energy efficiency standards. And another thing that could really help building energy efficiency for existing buildings is addressing deferred maintenance, but I'll talk more about that later. So the next objective is to use 140,000 megawatt hours per year of clean energy, or clean power rather, by 2025. And that's about 30% of the current annual demand. So when I say clean power, that refers to electricity from either wind or solar. And in 2019, 7% of campus's electricity demand was fulfilled by clean power. And that came from our solar farm and from an off-campus wind purchase power agreement. After the second solar farm is complete, which it should be by, I believe, the end of 2021, after that solar farm is complete, that number should rise to 10% of campus electricity that comes from clean power. And so that should mean fiscal year 22 has about 10% clean power. And so having 30% by 2025 is a pretty ambitious goal. And in order to make that happen, the university will definitely have to make more power, purchase power agreements with off-campus clean energy producers to make that happen. And we're currently exploring some options in that regard. So the next objective, objective number 4, is to use renewable natural gas for 5% of campus demand. So a little bit of background on Abbott Power Plant. Abbott has a CHP system, which means we burn fossil fuels and that heats up water into steam. And steam is really the main byproduct here. It's the main product. And that's because most of the energy used on campus that comes from burning these fossil fuels is used for heat. And so the steam, it travels through pipes underground into campus buildings and serves as a heat source. Electricity is generated as a byproduct. And so the previous objective refers to making electricity more sustainable, but we should also address how to make our source of heat more sustainable. And so that's what this objective seeks to do. We should also continue to explore alternative fuel sources for Abbott Power Plant. Obviously, relying on fossil fuels for energy isn't sustainable, but the CHP system is very efficient. So in the future, we should talk about whether we want to abandon Abbott or if we want to convert it to run on completely renewable fuel sources. And one more thing here, an anaerobic digester could be a good way to produce renewable natural gas on campus. And this semester, I actually drafted a recommendation that ACES should conduct a feasibility study to build a digester on campus. All right, objective number 5. This objective is about electric heating, and it's a little bit controversial and may or may not be included in the final iCAP, but it's certainly worth considering. So the goal here is to convert campus buildings to hot water, low temperature electric heating systems, and geothermal and solar thermal can be used to reduce the electricity demand on these systems by heating water up to a certain temperature, and then electricity can heat the water to whatever temperature it needs to be at to provide heat for the building. And then we should also consider using renewable electricity sources such as solar for the source of electricity for this electric heating. Some things that still have to be determined for this objective is the scale. Do we want to make electric heating the status quo for campus buildings? And if so, is it possible to incorporate the current steam system from Abbott CHP into it? I don't know if I mentioned, but CHP stands for Combined Heat and Power, if anyone was wondering. But can we incorporate the CHP system into this electric heating, or will we have to completely abandon it? That's certainly a question worth considering. Second is a specific metric. For example, a certain number of buildings that should be converted to electric heating, and that kind of ties into the scale of the whole thing. And lastly, we should explore options for energy storage and batteries in these heating systems. Objective number 6 is to reduce energy use intensity on campus. So energy use intensity, or EUI, is the total energy consumption per square foot of campus. And we're doing a great job at reducing the EUI. It's decreasing way ahead of schedule. And so this time around, we decided to make some more ambitious goals for reducing EUI. And when I say we want to reduce X%, that refers to the 2008 baseline year EUI. So by 2030, we want to reduce EUI by 45%. We want that number to be 50% by 2040 and 60% by 2050. Deferred maintenance is maintenance requests that haven't been addressed. And we have a lot of these on campus. And this is probably the biggest hindrance to conserving energy on campus, since buildings with rundown equipment aren't as energy efficient. So addressing deferred maintenance should definitely help reduce our EUI. And then the last objective is to reduce total campus energy consumption. While EUI is decreasing, and that's great, campus is still getting larger, and because of this, the total energy consumption is still increasing. And we want to see that start to decrease. So if we're using less energy, we're not only burning less fossil fuels and reducing energy emissions, but we're also making better use of our resources, which is always a good habit to have. And improving our space management and addressing deferred maintenance should definitely help reduce our overall energy consumption on campus. And that's all I got for you.
Thanks, David. So now we will move on to Mallory for Land and Water.
Hi everyone, it's me again. So I'm also the clerk for the Land and Water team, so I'll be talking about the objectives in this team as well, or in this chapter as well. The Land and Water team, as Evan said before, there's been a lot of low-hanging fruit that the university and the iCAP has been able to, achieve since the iCAP first started. So we're really looking to continue to just push the envelope and be as innovative as we can, especially because the land and water use on campus is not just on main campus, it's throughout the agricultural land that the university uses and the various labs and research facilities around campus. So there is a lot to consider when drafting these objectives. And so with that, we'll start with objective number 1 is by 2024, reduce potable water consumption by 40% from the 2008 baseline. Yeah, like I said, we're always looking to just kind of push that envelope. And this is a more broad objective. A lot of the objectives for land and water are just broad goals, and then our team will be working on specific strategies to accomplish them. So we will definitely be looking at ways to reduce potable water consumption by 2024. Then we have implement the resilient landscape strategy recommendations by also 2024. This is a landscape strategy that includes increasing low-mow areas, increasing pollinator-friendly areas, just really making as many landscapes as possible as most climate resilient as they can be as well, increasing native species. So yeah, we really want to implement these strategies. Then we have increased the number of trees on campus by 50% by 2024. This is an objective that I'm personally really excited about because tree cover is so important, especially in terms of carbon sequestration. This can really help us achieve that overall iCAP goal of reducing our carbon emissions. So this is something that I really hope that we can accomplish by 2024, and we will be working on strategies to do so. Then number 4, increase the number of on-the-ground pollinator-friendly landscaping areas on campus by 50% from the 2019 baseline by April of 2024. Kind of like I said before, with implementing the resilient landscape strategies, we really want to continue being a pollinator-friendly campus. And we actually have several student organizations that are working on this. So this is another opportunity for student involvement and yeah, showing what kind of the students care about and would like to see on campus. Then we have double the number of on-campus green infrastructure installations from 24 to 48 by 2024. And this will include, green roofs, just as many ways that we can incorporate green infrastructure into our buildings as possible. It is quite expensive and difficult to kind of retrofit the existing infrastructure. So we can try to make this a requirement for new buildings and, when the funds and when it is feasible to retrofit existing infrastructures, definitely do that by 2024. And we can move on to number 6. Thank you. So this is use cover crops in at least 20% of the South Farms acreage by 2024. The South Farms is used by a lot of different departments on campus, and this kind of goes into what I was saying before of looking at not just what is kind of the main campus, but the other entities that are using land and water as well. So cover crops are incredibly important in, making the land use resilient. And so using cover crops in at least 20% of the South Farm acreage will definitely help us in terms of carbon emissions and making our land and water use more sustainable. Then 7, we have collect soil analyses for all South Farms land parcel using the LabCorp system by 2024. So we really want to make sure that our soil is healthy and see what its carbon sequestration is. We can also test for nitrates and phosphorus, especially with the eutrophication problems that I'm sure we were all aware of. We just want to make sure that we are not contributing to that or, lessening the impact that our farm use could have on that issue. So using the LabCorp system, it will be a more high-tech approach to analyzing the soil. And this can just give us a better idea of our contributions to eutrophication as one of the issues 8, we have increased nature visibility by establishing an indoor green space by 2024. This is really important, I think, for students and faculty and staff, just anyone on campus, to be able to appreciate and enjoy nature more. You know, we're all kind of stuck inside in the classrooms most of the time, so having an indoor green space will really show everyone, increase the exposure that we have to nature in just our day-to-day campus lives. Then 9, we have implement the food literacy project by fiscal year 24 by tracking carbon, nitrogen, and water footprints for food items in campus dining halls. It is definitely important to track our footprints for especially carbon, nitrogen, and water to save as much as we can. And if we can implement this project, then we will know exactly where we stand in terms of those footprints and be able to have a better idea of what we need to do to decrease those emissions and just, make the dining less wasteful, especially. Then 10, we have design a 4-mile contiguous walking path around campus and start the Adopt a Pathway program by fiscal year 24. This will be really helpful for students who choose to walk and faculty and staff, anyone that's on campus. Kind of going back to what Julia was saying about different transportation. If we can increase walkability on campus, then we can decrease the emissions from vehicles. And this will also, if we can implement the Adopt a Pathway program with that as well, then different RSOs and organizations can be responsible for part of the pathway and just have a really direct impact on that, keeping it sustainable. And so then I just have a quote from myself that talking about my experience on the Land and Water SWAT team. I said that watching the process of formulating objectives and gaining a better understanding of the current sustainability of the university's land and water practices has been one of my favorite parts of the SWAT team. And then the university, I really think, has the opportunity to be a model for the local community and institutions across the world. So with our land and water use, we can show not only the Urbana-Champaign community and, kind of greater state of Illinois community what sustainable land and water use looks like, but we can also be kind of a model for other institutions and other communities across the United States and the world. And I think that is a really important and unique opportunity to take advantage of. That's everything for land and water. Thank you.
Thanks again, Mallory. And now we will go back to Julia to tell us about the zero waste objectives.
Yes, thanks, Meredith, and thanks, Mallory. So, so about zero waste, the current definition supported in the 2020 iCAP for actually defining zero waste is that it's the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, recovery of products, packaging materials, without burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. And that quote is from the Zero Waste International Alliance, and I definitely stole that from the 2020 iCAP draft, so thank you, Jenna. So something that the Zero Waste team has been considering recently is that the university's waste stream, what we analyze and what we count as our waste, is somewhat limited, and part of the limitations include what is outside of our current waste stream, meaning that we only count what's already in the system and how we process its disposal, rather than the embodied energy or the embodied inputs that come from creating some product in some cases. It's not, not across the board. We are making some efforts, for example, with paper products. There are certain stipulations and stuff, and a lot of sustainable guidelines have been supported recently. But just to give you a bit of background of where we're at. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first objective is to increase understanding and compliance with sustainable procurement requirements, with 100% of business managers completing the annual sustainable procurement report by fiscal year 2024. So basically what this means is that we have all of these really awesome guidelines, sustainability guidelines. For example, a really common example that people will give to you is recycled paper content. So it is mandated by state law to procure 30% recycled content paper whenever practical and possible. But a really big issue with that is that it's really difficult to enforce that and to track that. So what this objective aims to do is to kind of have a point person, someone that we as an institution or we as a campus can go to and say, how is your department, how is your facility handling the sustainability guideline? So some of the metrics suggested for these annual sustainable procurement reports, not necessarily, these aren't the final criteria, but these are just some things that have been discussed, are the percent of purchases made through iBuy, which a lot of you are probably familiar with. It's basically just a system that you can purchase goods through. And another criteria would be the percentage of environmentally preferred purchases of products such as office paper, but it also includes cleaning products, computers, miscellaneous electronics, and freight and package delivery services. And then another criteria that has been considered are the number of vendor contracts that include sustainability requirements. So when we're talking to potential vendors, are they willing to work with us as a campus to get us where we need to go? And you know, it's been a really great pleasure to have Aaron Finder from the purchasing office. He's the assistant director of purchasing, and he's been a really great help in getting us to understand how those contracts work and how we can take where we are and get to where we need to go. And so an example of how we're also trying to not enforce necessarily, but encourage participation is we have an ethics and sustainability training that is coming up pretty soon. It's still kind of getting on its feet, kind of feeling around what's going to really happen with this training. But essentially the idea is that when all faculty and staff do their annual ethics training, that there would be an optional add-on at the end. So once you go through all of that ethics training, which I'm sure I haven't personally taken it, but I'm sure it's grueling at times, there's an option at the end where you can have an active voice in campus sustainability. So it's not necessarily going to be just like content that you look through and then someone's lecturing at you and that's it. The hope is that it will be an interactive opportunity for faculty and staff on campus. So we're really excited about that, and hopefully it's implemented next semester. So objective number 2 is to establish a culture of reuse with 100% of campus-wide events hosted by the chancellor or provost offices using durable goods and composting by fiscal year 2024. So I love this objective personally because our dollar is such a powerful vessel, and so campus spending should reflect what we believe in, you know. So this is really awesome, just creating this this guideline of we believe in these sustainable practices, even down to the events that are hosted by campus administration. And it's a really great opportunity to kind of put our money where our mouth is. And so, yeah, the hope is also that, you know, if people go to these events, they see, wow, like all of these things are compostable, or it's renewable, like a renewable energy was used to make this product, or whatever it may be. This is made of recycled paper or cardboard. It really is psychological in that it allows people to think about what they would do for one of their events. Like if they are working with a department and they notice that at all of their departmental events that they're using styrofoam plates or plastic cutlery, how can they improve as well? So leading by example is really awesome, which is why I love this objective. So the third objective is to develop a comprehensive zero waste messaging or behavioral change campaign by fiscal year 2021 and to achieve a cumulative total of 10,000 Use the Bin pledges by 2024. So Use the Bin is this campaign basically that the communications department supported and probably implemented. And it just promotes recycling and to get your garbage where it needs to go, and learning about what this campus actually recycles. And so we hope that a lot of programs that we integrate over the next few years involve students and faculty and staff, everyone, but students are a huge component of this university, obviously. So we want everyone to understand what the waste stream is, and a really common example that I can give you is like your standard coffee chain to-go cup. And it's like a huge example. I'm sure that everyone at iSEE knows this example, but if you have a to-go cup from Espresso Royale, Cafe Bene, whatever, Starbucks, that to-go cup, even if you rinse it out, it's not recyclable because, well, if you don't rinse it out, there's the contamination issue. But even if you do, that cup is a mixed material, right? Because it has a plastic coating on the inside. So therefore, it's not recyclable at this campus. But I have seen so many times throwing their Starbucks cups with some ice in there, or like their plastic straw. And it's just, we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with this kind of stuff. And this is part of us wanting to cultivate a zero waste campus culture. We want people to know in and out the waste stream of this campus and to know what part they play in it and what efforts that they can make. And, education really is the key to making progress. Other examples of how we want to engage students are first year engagement programs, like Mallory was saying. So, we hope to be involved in your LAS 101 or engineering 101 or whatever it may be to make sure that you understand. So objective 4 is to install appropriate waste collection infrastructure throughout the university district by fiscal year 2024 to reduce total landfill waste by 10%. And I know that there may be some thoughts of like 10% doesn't seem like a lot, but if you consider how much waste we have on this campus, it's quite a fair bit. And we're doing the best we can with the resources that we have. And so something that's been really great is having a zero waste coordinator. Shantanu Kai has been such an awesome resource for us as a team to understand what the current system is, why we're not meeting certain metrics that we really want to be meeting, and what the future setup looks like, or what other campuses are doing. Shantanu has been a great resource for that. So something that I have been made aware of is there's currently an effort at FNS to have these tags on all of the garbage trucks that collect our garbage, and to make sure that we are able to track at every single pickup how much waste is being added. And this is so awesome because, instead of applying blanket policies, we can have a conversation with a specific building or a specific region. Why are you producing this much waste? How can we help you reduce how much waste you're producing? So this is a really awesome objective, and hopefully it allows us to kind of overhaul the system that we have set up and make it even better. So the 5th objective is by fiscal year 2024 to investigate options for integrating landfill disposal costs in the integrated and value-centered budget reform. So it's called the IVCB reform. And just for a little bit of background as to what that actually is, it's basically a model of budgeting which allows more flexibility in budgetary expenses. So you're allowed to invest and to fund and support the things that matter to us as a campus or to a certain department. So it's a really great way to set aside funds for things that should be funded. So fiscal year 2020 is actually the first year of implementation of this IVCB budget. And so 2019 is serving as that baseline year. But so hopefully we're able to see if there's some way to integrate those landfill disposal costs and to hopefully allow to free up some more spending for really awesome projects. So number 6 is to enable food waste reduction on campus through a behavior change campaign and tracking, with at least 5 new areas tracking and reporting their food waste by fiscal year 2022. So this actually doesn't include dining, because dining services already track all of their post-consumer waste. And they actually have a lot of really cool initiatives to reduce waste. So obviously they track their food waste, they implement a lot of sustainable waste processing, like they have those anaerobic digesters. And they also they have a food donation program, obviously when it's safe to do so. So dining has been a really great resource to look at what we can expand to the greater campus area. So what we would love to see is external units outside of dining, have more sustainable practices. So that would include all of the little cafes that you see at like IGB and Beckman or Bevier Cafe, things like that. We want to see those places doing their best. And in order to do their best, we need to support them. So hopefully there's a way to get them involved. So objective number 7 is to reduce food waste by 30% by fiscal year 2024 for all newly tracked locations. So that ties into the previous objective. So we have this idea, we want these new units to participate in our food reduction, and then we want to make sure that they're meeting an achievable, a trackable metric. So this is just a way to have that metric. So for objective number 8, we want to detail a comprehensive plan including implementation and operational costs and benefits to sustainably dispose of all organic food waste by fiscal year 2024 and implement the plan by fiscal year 2033. So like I said before, current resources for waste disposal include anaerobic digesters, but we would love to see more composting. That is actually one of the most common suggestions that we get at all of the student input sessions, at all of the public feedback areas. Everyone wants to see composting, and we're trying to make it happen, trust us. And so Meredith Moore actually has been a really great resource. She has a personal interest in composting, so if you are interested in learning about what composting looks like, you might want to talk to her. But yeah, we just want to know, how can we make composting work for such a large area? And so we want to figure out how we can do that. And so other options for that as well include biodiesel generation, and that is kind of complicated, so I'm just gonna not really mention that right now, but if you really want to know about it, I can find the people for you that can explain it to you much better than I could. But just know that it's an option that we would love to consider. The caveat to this objective, though, is that these are high capital projects, and it requires support not just from iSEE and not just campus administration, but we need not necessarily financial, but a lot of structural support from the greater Champaign-Urbana area. So that's a really exciting opportunity as well. The next objective, number 9, is to continue to increase the use of local food to 40% by fiscal year 2024. And 40% is pretty ambitious. So with all the food stuff, I always reference dining because they are honestly so awesome. They do so much work in trying to minimize their footprint. So dining currently hovers around 25% of local food because it's really difficult to source all of the ingredients at a local level for them. But, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to unite the Champaign-Urbana area with our campus. We could maybe there's an opportunity to work with private businesses and farms to provide local food options. And this would not only decrease the embodied emissions of our food, but it would support the local economy. So obviously this is just my personal opinion, but I think it would be really interesting to see how we can support local food initiatives and how we can try to meet that objective. So I think that's really awesome. And then the last objective is to establish a green cleaning program that would meet LEED requirements by fiscal year 2024. So the LEED certified green cleaning program aims to reduce the exposure of building occupants and maintenance personnel to potentially hazardous chemical, biological, and particulate contaminants, which would adversely affect air quality, human health, building finishes, building systems, and of course, the environment. So not only does this mean we want to be incorporating more environmentally friendly and green products and follow the criteria of that LEED certification, it also requires to have a more intimate connection with our building service workers, our BSWs. We need to train them properly and support them in using these cleaner materials. And it goes hand in hand with current FNS initiatives to provide updated information to BSWs on sustainable disposal methods. So that's all for the objectives, but before I finish off, I just want to say that it's been such a great pleasure to see the iCAP as a living, breathing document. You know, this is my second year at iSEE as the clerk for both the zero waste and transportation teams, and it's been incredibly fascinating to see so many people united and working towards this common goal. And it's just, yeah, it's awesome to see so many people coming together and to see student input taken seriously. And I just encourage you all to involve those in your circles in this process, because there's not very many opportunities like this. So that's just my 2 cents, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. We are so appreciative of you as well. So thanks for all that you do. Let's move on now to Kimmy, who will talk to us about the resilience objectives.
Hi everyone, my name's Kimmy. I'm currently a sophomore. I'm majoring in NRES and political science, and I'm a student voting member on the resilience team. So before I get into the objectives, the resilience team is relatively new. We started in August of 2019, but it's been building up on a lot of work from a lot of different community members and faculty and students that's been happening since 2015. And so I want to pay respect to all of the work that has been done so far, and then talk to you about some of the draft objectives that we have now. So resilience really is focused on making our community together as campus, Champaign, Urbana, and Savoy, to strengthen our community in the face of environmental uncertainties, such as severe weather events, extreme temperatures, and other atmospheric changes because of climate change. So our first objective is recognizing that biological diversity within our ecosystems is one of the strongest ways we can enhance our community's resilience to these kinds of changes. So what we want to do is start an urban biodiversity plan that incorporates all the things that we can do to make sure that our ecosystems and the health of our communities can be resilient in the face of any challenges. So one of the ways we want to do that, these are some of the things that we have planned. We want to integrate native plants and green spaces into our local urban areas, plant tree canopies to help manage stormwater, air quality, reduce CO2, but also to curb the heat island effects in our built communities. Third, we want to plant species that are likely to adapt well, not just native plants that we know are really important, but ones that we know will adapt to the projected climate changes that will happen in our community. And lastly, to plant native plants, like I said, and to have pest management practices to support pollinator-friendly, insect, predator, and bird-friendly habitats. So the next, to help out with that biodiversity plan is also we want to make sure our cities have effective rainwater management, because that's another crucial point of combating the urban vulnerabilities to climate change because of all of the built communities and infrastructures that allow us to thrive and to live on the community, which is really great, but we have to acknowledge the impacts that they have. So currently there are 24 green infrastructure installations that was mentioned in the land and water chapter, but we want to be able to share that more on the iCAP portal so that people can see what we're trying to do to make our infrastructures more green. Secondly, we want to encourage developers to install green roofs and rain gardens in high trafficked areas on campus, such as this initiative for green roofs on Green Street, to address specifically those areas that have a lot of urban populations that need to face this problem of rainwater management. And that's not only just on campus, but we want to make these infrastructures help, because rainwater will affect all of the communities together. And that's why we want to tackle this as the resilience chapter, because it's going to affect all of us in very similar ways like climate change. So then we want to focus on arranging campus installations tailored to optimize water resources. Like we mentioned in the land and water chapter, there's a lot of really good work that's been going on into making sure that we're reducing potable water usage, and really we've done a really great job and want to keep continuing those kind of efforts beyond our campus. And an important subsection of this plan will be to include drought management, because that's also something that's projected to happen in possible areas, and we want to make sure, you know, what do we do when we don't have water, and what do we do when we have too much water? So that's also another thing that we're hoping to include in the plan. So next, the third objective is environmental justice or climate justice. Many of the strategies that we're implementing to coordinate biodiversity and rainwater, we have to acknowledge they're going to have significant impacts on the local communities. For example, having increased urban green space will yield benefits for community members' physical and mental health. But we want to make sure that the range of benefits and problems are not enforcing social inequalities that we know are present in our communities. We want to make sure that populations who have historically been marginalized, underserved, and vulnerable to climate change are properly addressed. So first, we want to recognize whatever existing programs there are and clarify the points of contingency. After that, we want to have a climate vulnerability assessment to identify the populations and or geographies most at risk to climate change, specifically like in our communities, surrounding our areas, what kinds of people, what kind of demographics would be most at risk, or what regions would be most at risk. And then we want to move on to what some programs are already specifically serving these kind of marginalized communities by improving food security, by providing shuttles to grocery stores and community gardens. And especially in this time of COVID-19, we've also wanted to make sure that, like, we know people in lower socioeconomic statuses are often impacted differently, and we have to make sure that we help those people as well. So objective number 4 and 5. So 4, we want to take leadership and address the 3 major sustainability issues. We want to identify that and identify a lead agency and key stakeholders, because with these fixes that are going to be so prevalent in all of our communities, we want to make sure we're not just aiming for quick fixes, but for long-term environmental and economic feasibility. And we want to make sure that the majority of our time is spent into issues that are really prioritizing what's important to everyone. Objective number 5, Vision Zero is a county-wide goal to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries, while also increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for all. So this is an initiative that was first implemented in Sweden, but actually Chicago was the first US city to adopt this kind of vision, because if we want to be promoting more public transportation, we want to make sure that people are being safe while they're doing so, and that's really the point of having Vision Zero. Next objective is to make sure that while we acknowledge that moving forward as an educational institution, it's really important to have a lot of faculty research, a lot of a lot of officials working on this, but we also believe that community involvement, local landowners are really the heart of any community, and we want to make sure that our public plans are really also impacting these private landowners and trying to help and recognizing that local communities are the core of all progress towards sustainability. So we want to spread awareness of local climate adaptation programs through programs like the Champaign County Sustainability Network. And we have a lot of different strategies for how to take these impacts from public to private lands. The first is a citizen monitoring initiative, where we encourage different practices such as citizens talking about basement flooding, so that we can make sure that public officials are addressing the needs of private citizens. We also want to make sure that citizens are trained on the best practices, and we can help local landowners explore plans for green energy like solar and geothermal. One thing that isn't on the slide, but it also, we want to support joint regulations on major projects such as LEED certification, building codes, offset, solar energy, green roofs, those kinds of things that private landowners just may not have the information about, and we just want to spread awareness to them that these practices are out there. The next objective is focusing on green sector jobs. And so while we strive for engagement on a volunteer basis, we want to make sure, we know that making a community sustainable is making sure that the job market is sustainable. And that's really a strong foundation for ensuring the resilience of any community. So we want to make sure that we want to focus on employing at-risk youths and adults in resilience roles, such as installing the green infrastructures we talked about with rain gardens and rainwater management, the renewable energy design and the maintenance of those systems, also in the food security programs that we talked about earlier. We want to explore the National Green Infrastructure Certification Program, which I think is really cool, and I really want to see more work into these green sector jobs, because I personally believe that, well, some people say money talks, but I also just believe that, like, we want to counteract the value that, like, somehow the environment and the economy are, you know, at odds with each other, which they really aren't. And this program seems really cool because they can provide base level skill sets for new entry level workers in green infrastructure designs and implementations. And I think that's a really valuable opportunity that we're excited to explore in the future. The next objective we're really excited about is also an offset program that was also mentioned. We're planning to work with the transportation objectives, and primarily we focused on carbon offsets, but we want to acknowledge that there are also different kinds of offset programs such as biodiversity, wetlands, and water offsets that can also be a way for us to reduce our environmental impact. Now, the focus is on a local offsets program, because in the past, when we bought the carbon offsets, they were off in different countries, really. And we want to see that the benefits that we're giving to offset our impacts can actually be benefiting our local communities and cities. So some of the steps for how we might think about doing and setting up a local offset program is first to do an inventory of the institutions and programs through a literature review. Next, to plan for local stakeholder engagement, and then to initiate the final plan. So these are some of the steps that we may take in order to pursue a local offset program. Another thing that I think I would really be excited in engaging in, and something I wanted to mention, is that I got into this position through participating in Meredith's and Eric's NRES 285 course that we talked about during the education chapter. It was a course learning about the iCAP, and I was really thankful for the opportunity, because that led to me being able to come onto the Resilience SWAT team and be involved in public engagement, and in a way that I never have before. And I never thought that, like, I was just taking the class because it sounded like fun, but now it's led to me meeting all of these amazing people and being a part of this really cool program. So I'm really grateful for it. And I think the education chapter has really good ideas in place, because it's already working. So thank you everyone for listening about resilience.
Thank you so much, Kimmy. We're so glad to have you too. So our last section will be presented by Sarah, who will go over the engagement and fossil fuel divestment objectives. So Sarah, take it away.
Hi everybody, I'm Sarah. I'm a junior from the history department, and I'm on the Student Sustainability Committee and the iCAP working group. So although we don't have a SWAT team for this section, I'll be presenting the objectives. So engagement is so important for the iCAP, because it's important to develop a culture of sustainability among people who are interested in the environment, but also among people who might be focusing their energies on other things. So our first objective is to increase the number of certified green offices and labs on campus. There's already been a lot of good work on this. For example, as Dr. DeLucia mentioned earlier, we have won the International Freezer Challenge for energy conservation, but we still do have a long ways to go. We have a lot of offices and labs that can be more sustainable. So we are planning to increase the number of certifications by 20% each year from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 24. Our second objective is to develop a sustainable events program by fiscal year 23. So this will make sure that a range of campus events are zero waste and also reduce their carbon footprint. So this will include events supported by the Illini Union Board, like karaoke nights in the union, movie nights, different kinds of workshops, and some Greek life meetings. This is really important because sustainability needs to be a factor in all sorts of events, not just what is already explicitly environmental. Our third objective is to incorporate sustainability-related problem-solving solutions and community engagement through the GivePulse system for public engagement. We want to track these collaborations between university groups and community groups. So this will be working with other sorts of like activist and community engagement organizations to make sure that as they think about their work, they include sustainability in their problem-solving work. Next slide, please. Okay, another way to engage the community is to host a youth sustainability summit. This program is really great because students and staff from UIUC will mentor local high school students and help them lead a summit for their peers. This will help foster confidence in both students themselves and their confidence in the value of sustainability. This is a great way to reach a lot of different types of people in the community as well, because students will both come to the summit and help put it on and work with people from the university, and then go home and talk to their parents and siblings and coaches about the environmental work that they're doing with the university. Also, students who have positive experiences with sustainability at a young age are more likely to incorporate it into whatever they may decide to do in the future. So it's really important that we get teenagers in Champaign-Urbana thinking about sustainability. Lastly, we want to be sure to keep the campus community informed about what we are doing to improve sustainability. So there will be monthly updates on the iCAP portal, which everybody can access through the iSEE website. And I'm sure we'll have updates on our social media as well. There has been a really exciting level of an engagement this year surrounding the iCAP. We've had a great turnout at student input sessions and a lot of really good feedback from other people around the campus community as well. And we're really proud of this and really excited about it. And we want to build on that to make sure that people know what's going on and how they can stay engaged even after this plan is finalized. So the last thing that we want to talk about today is fossil fuel divestment. This is a really challenging objective for a lot of reasons, but it's absolutely essential that we divest from fossil fuels if Illinois is going to take environmental stewardship seriously. So in the iCAP, we have set the final date for fossil fuel divestment to be fiscal year 25. So this gives us some time to gradually shift what's now invested in fossil fuels to other sources, although since the price of oil is currently negative, doing that sooner rather than later might be a good idea. Even when oil isn't affected by COVID-19, it's still financially responsible to divest from fossil fuels because the future of the industry is uncertain, and our school has a lot of money invested in companies like Shell, Exxon, Chevron, and Marathon, as well as many other fossil fuel companies. Also, a lot of other schools are divesting, including the University of Michigan has frozen all of their assets in fossil fuel companies, and so that's another Big Ten school that we want to make sure we keep up with when it comes to sustainability. In order to do this and make sure that investments that are taken out of fossil fuel companies are replaced with sustainable and socially responsible investments, we are committing to the sustainable investment policy by fiscal year 24. And this is in line with a new state law that Governor Pritzker signed off on in January. Their socially responsible investing guidelines and environmental sustainability is one of their 4 pillars. So divestment is really mandatory if we as a school want to be more environmentally sustainable. And that wraps up our first round of iCAP objectives. I'll hand it over to Meredith now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. And thank you to all the student presenters and of course everybody for being here. We are so appreciative of all of your work and your attention, your motivation to keep moving forward with our campus sustainability efforts. So please continue to stay tuned as we keep moving forward with developing our iCAP to then release in the fall. At any time, I invite you to reach out to myself if there's anything that you want to discuss, as well as Shiming and Morgan, the Associate Director for Campus Sustainability at iSEE, as well as Morgan, the Associate Director of Sustainability at FNS. We are always willing to take your feedback personally and incorporate that into our work. So please click the QR code here as well, or you can also click the link below that to provide your feedback. As a reminder, we will also be posting this presentation as well as the PowerPoint on our iSEE website for you to provide all of your input. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your Earth Week, and I hope you are all staying healthy and safe. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.